Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, today I have two more stories about, the wilderness. One story involves this mysterious female voice that lures people in, and another, more mysterious tracks. Let's read the first article. A siren song in the Pennsylvania woods entrances campers near Philadelphia. Let's get into this first account and hear what might be an encounter with an actual siren or even Lorelei. I'll explain all of this as we read the article. In the mid-2000s, a group of summer campers outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania experienced something that has lingered for years without explanation. What began as a curious walk into the woods became an unsettling encounter with a beautiful but disturbing voice that seemed to pull them forward. Similar accounts appear across history and cultures, raising difficult questions about what truly called them from the forest. Let's get into the account and read the entirety of it now. Eric from Philadelphia described an experience that occurred while attending summer camp with two friends. The camp was large, with a long road running through multiple campsites and continuing uphill beyond the active area. One afternoon, driven by curiosity, the three decided to follow the road to see where it led. After walking roughly a mile and a half, the road ended at what appeared to be a dumping area deep in the woods. As they rested there, a woman's voice began singing from somewhere within the forest. The sound was not shouting or speaking, but a beautiful, melodic vocalization. Despite its beauty, the singing felt deeply unsettling. Probably because they felt something stirring within them, folks. They were about to describe how this singing really affected them and their surroundings, is what I'm basically going to say what happens next, folks. Now, this entity sounds like, it's an ultra-terrestrial or even, maybe even alien presence. Certainly it's alien in fact they don't know what it is, but I'm saying it might be from truly beyond this world, maybe even interdimensional. But we'll talk more about that after we finish off this particular story. The voice seemed to draw them forward without discussion. All three began walking into the woods, feeling oddly compelled, almost entranced. They soon reached a clearing where the sound appeared to originate. At that moment, a sudden and powerful gust of wind rushed through the area without warning. The intensity of the wind broke the spell. Terrified, the boys fled the clearing and ran back toward the campsite. Eric stated that the experience never felt like imagination or misinterpretation. The emotional impact remained vivid. Years later, he had never been able to determine what kind of phenomena they encountered. Now, I'm going to give off a few, ideas about what this entity actually was, folks. If you look at classic mythology, the Siren, that was basically, featured in Homer's The Odyssey, which basically caused the main character in the story to basically be drawn towards the singing of the sirens, and he had to basically, be tied down, on his ship to basically not fling himself into the sea. If you think about that, folks, this entity sounds very reminiscent of it, as well as Lorelei, a creature from, European myth, folks, that basically was a woman whose singing could lure people basically towards her when they heard her voice, folks. This entity, this witch, or maybe, fairy entity, resided on the Rain River, folks. Very interesting that this sounds so similar to this particular entity as well, folks. So, was it some sort of ultra-terrestrial presence, or maybe interdimensional or even alien being? Perhaps this entity was luring these boys into the woods for abduction. Perhaps. It does sound similar to other encounters with UFOs where people felt like their minds were altered in some way. Very interesting, folks, but we don't know for sure until more information comes up. But let's move on to the next article. Mysterious creature tracks stir speculation in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania neighborhood. Let's get into this encounter that could be basically, with a dogman or maybe some sort of reptilian entity in the area, folks. Then again, this was also similarly in winter, so it doesn't sound like they're kind of place the lizard-like entity would be. But let's read on, folks. In the first week of January 2026, a resident of Gray Fox Road in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, reported a mysterious animal on their property that some neighbors believed might be an alligator. The unusual sighting prompted a nighttime search by wildlife responders and quickly captured local attention. As experts weighed in and community curiosity grew, the question remained, what was truly out there? On the evening of January 6th, 2026, a homeowner in a quiet Monroe County neighborhood called the Pocono Wildlife Rehabilitation and Education Center after spotting an unfamiliar creature on their residential walkway. The caller shared several blurry photos with wildlife volunteers describing the animal as resembling an alligator or a larger reptile. Now, what is this entity, folks? Was it really a reptile? Remember, this is in winter, and it is in Pennsylvania, which I think is rather frosty this time of year, folks. But then again, maybe I'm not quite sure about that. But either way, why would an alligator or even a lizard be out in that kind of weather this time of year, folks? And in that part of the country, it makes no sense. Was it an escaped animal? I doubt from a zoo, folks, because I don't think they're that inept. And I doubt that an animal, like basically some large lizard like this, could survive out there very long. But maybe it is an escaped animal from, as I've said before, folks, a menagerie or, well, animal trade. But I can't be for sure, because this is truly very bizarre. But let's read on with the article, folks. When wildlife responders arrived, they discovered tracks in the fresh snow, initially thought by some observers to match those of a large non-native reptile such as a blue tegu. Because species like alligators and tegus are exothermic, relying on outside heat to regulate their body temperatures, wildlife experts noted that prolonged survival in the cold Poconos weather would be highly unlikely without artificial heat. Responders and volunteers spent several hours searching the area after dark, but the elusive creature was never located. After further analysis of the tracks and witness input, multiple experts suggested that the prints and sighting details were more consistent with a native, possum. The Stroud Area Regional Police confirmed they had received no reports of exotic reptiles missing in the area. I think that's very consistent, folks. It's probably a possum that was seen. Maybe he has mange, but the fact that this animal, this possum, has mange in the middle of winter, folks, is probably not a good thing for this particular animal, but it's the only thing that I can come up with a reasonable answer to why this lizard-like being was seen. It wasn't a lizard, folks, because this is the last place a lizard would be, because it would be dead. So unless it was some sort of escaped animal, it was probably, a mammal, suffering from some sort of condition where these people were unable to identify it. But the fact that if it had mange, that in of itself is a death sentence for a mammal, especially in winter, don't you think, folks? It'd probably freeze to death. So I'm surprised that no evidence to the actual identity of what this animal is. Either, reports of a missing reptile from, various people, maybe people who trade in animals, maybe illegally, or from the zoo, or, from the vet. Or even people who basically have seen other examples of, mammals with mange in the area. The fact that no animal has been identified at, all, is telling. Most likely, folks, this is just a run-of-the-mill animal. Maybe it doesn't have mange, but maybe there's some reason why it was mistaken for a large reptile, but we can't be for sure. All I know, folks, is that both stories are truly weird. And one, we can basically surmise it has a mundane answer with this particular case, with this, unknown animal. Whether there is anything abnormal about it beyond the fact that no one can identify this animal, most likely it was probably a possum, folks. But either way, there's still a possibility it was an unknown animal, I guess, a new species. But until we can prove it, we just say and have to say it was probably a possum. But what about the voice, folks? What was it? Was it a spiritual entity, perhaps? A demonic encounter luring these boys to their doom? Or was it something along the lines of a fairy encounter, like basically a will-o'-the-wisp or a siren, an entity luring them into the woods for, maybe not their doom, but maybe it was some sort of fairy-like entity that wanted to, meet with these boys for maybe a benevolent reason, perhaps? We just don't know. Either way, we're at the end, folks, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to my channel. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure at the part of the bell they'll give you all future notifications. And please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.